and conclude that perhaps what was happening over the past 24 hours was indeed that transfer of authority from the president to the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces. The vice president making the statements. One of the most ominous signs that we started looking into that things were changing was Egyptian state media. In the past 24 hours, the tone of their coverage changed. We were seeing things that we had never seen before in Egyptian media. The vice president coming out today in those brief statements and essentially now saying that the military will be running the country. Certainly the end of one chapter, but the beginning of a much more important chapter now for the people and for the military.
Yeah, before we start talking about what happens next, Eamon, let's talk about the last 24 hours then. How do we explain what happened then? President Hosni Mubarak came out less than 24 hours ago and made that speech which so disappointed the people there in Tahrir Square and insisted that he was staying in his post until September. And now this, what happened in the last 18, 20 hours?
Well, Adrian, when the history books are written about what happened in these critical hours, it's going to have to answer a lot of questions. The timing of so many of these statements, the moves that happened behind the scenes. Why did the army communique come out first before the president's statement? Could this delay have been something that was pre-planned to throw people off, to create a sense of confusion among ordinary Egyptians, to test them, to test their resolve? Was it a blunder on the part of the government that in the order of these statements? Was this perhaps even a coup of some sort? We still don't know. Now, it's very important not to jump to conclusions, but yes, we know that the vice president has announced President Mubarak has stepped down and handed the powers to the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces, but the question really is how in the past 24 hours did the politics behind it all unfold? And it's still going to be a very long time before we start hearing from all of these players that made today happen.
Eamon, you're the first Egyptian I've spoken to since this happened. A personal question for you, Mubarak. You've been there throughout this, all of the 18 days. I want you to stop being impartial for a moment because your reporting has been exemplary all the way through. Give me your personal feeling as to what you're seeing there now in Cairo tonight.
Well, Adrian, as somebody who spent a lot of time growing up here in Egypt, and you've seen the sacrifices that have been made by so many people over the years, ordinary Egyptians who have been complaining for a better quality of life, for those who, for decades, indeed tried to make that dream a reality, the sacrifices that so many people have made, particularly in the last years. For years, the Egyptian people have been criticized for being somewhat apathetic, for being somewhat disenfranchised, not taking care or not taking their own destiny in their hands. I think today, as an Egyptian, someone born here, there's no doubt there's a great deal of emotion that runs through every Egyptian, whether they're in the country or abroad. And I think we've seen that emotion come out from people all around the world, really. So today you can probably hear the sounds of celebrations. We've been hearing some celebratory gunfire. I can assure you that every Egyptian, whether they're stepping in Egyptian soil right now or if they're abroad, they're feeling a great sense of pride because for the first time in a long time, perhaps even in the modern history of this country, Egyptians' voice has been heard by their government. And this is what is so unique about this. It has changed the dynamic for every Egyptian who have felt a sense of empowerment. They have now, for the first time really, at least in my generation, and I can speak at least even in my parents' generation, their voices have been heard. And for the first time, they're going to take at least some kind of control in paving the way forward for their future. The questions really are going to be very challenging, but tonight it's taking a sense of pride in that the people that have been dormant for so long have indeed risen and demanded a better future for themselves. So it is a very emotional night. I can tell you that as an Egyptian who was born here, there's no doubt that I never thought that I would actually live to see a day like this, because you hear about Egypt in the past from your parents and grandparents, the sacrifices that so many Egyptians have made to live abroad and immigrate, seeing that better future. Tonight they're realizing that the people here in this country have gotten one step closer to making that future better.
Ayman, many thanks indeed. Ayman Nokyaldeen there, live in Cairo.